This week, Leonardo DiCaprio finds trouble in paradise in The Beach. Harvey Keitel is hired to deprogram cult member Kate Winslet in Holy Smoke. And Chevy Chase is a weatherman assigned to cover a record snow day.
Kilometers.
2.
Richard? I don't know. I'm thinking miles, not kilometers. I'm American. So let's go.
Leonardo DiCaprio and two friends decide to swim to a legendary island near Thailand, and that's seen from The Beach, one of the new movies we'll review this week. We'll also have the new film by his Titanic co-star, Kate Winslet, and we'll discuss titles to look for from this year's Sundance Film Festival. I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times.
I'm Janet Maslin, former chief film critic of the New York Times.
And you and I just saw each other in Sundance, where you were on the jury.
Yes, indeed.
Biggest film festival in America.
It was a good year this year.
Okay, we'll get to that a little bit later in the show. Our first movie is The Beach, much anticipated, because it's Leonardo DiCaprio's first starring role in almost 2 years and unites him with Danny Boyle, the director of Trainspotting. As the movie opens, he's a footloose American in Bangkok, given a map of an island where a hippie commune has a secret paradise and all the dope they can smoke. He recruits two French friends, and they swim to the island, where they get a scary reception from the hostile local marijuana growers. His new friends are Virginie Ledoyen and Guillaume Canet, and they decide their goal is on the other side of the island. That's not easy to get to.
We can jump.
Francoise, look, we're not gonna jump, all right? So just can it.
All right.
Let's do it. Francoise!
They find the commune, which is sort of a beach resort without credit cards, and a guarded romance grows between DiCaprio and the French guy's girlfriend.
Do you have a girlfriend?
Here?
Anywhere?
No. Why?
Just making conversation.
And then, of course, there's trouble in paradise. But even before that, the beach loses all sorts of opportunities to really look at that utopian paradise. There are moments when the movie lunges toward heavy questions, but then it pulls back into footage that would be right at home in Blue Lagoon. And there are dark moments. How the commune, for example, deals with the shark attack victim whose screams are such a downer for them. But the beach pulls its punches and leaves us feeling unsatisfied at the end, and maybe they just didn't want to subject DiCaprio's fans to the harsher possibilities that are always there in the story.
This story is dopey in any sense of the word. I mean, it just starts that way. It's based on a book by Alex Garland that I think is kind of a silly book. But the bottom line is, how is DiCaprio? That's the only reason people are going to go to this. I think, given that the expectations are impossible, he does a pretty good job. He's very charismatic. This is better than Danny Boyle's last film, A Life Less Ordinary.
Oh, yes, yes, it is.
And the technical stuff here, the music by Angelo Badalamenti and Darius Khondji, cinematography, very exotic and good-looking. I think even when the movie gets kind of lame-brained, it's interesting to watch.
Yeah, but kind of what you're describing is they've assembled all the right pieces, but they haven't put them together into the right movie. They have DiCaprio, they have the location, they have the music, but they don't have a story that really goes from beginning to end as if it knows where it wants to go. DiCaprio is a good actor. I'm glad that he's getting some of these roles that help him to live down the success of Titanic, which in a way kind of made him so famous that he got more attention than he really needed, but he's always been a good actor, and he's convincing here, but I don't know.
He's convincing, and he has a new manliness. He's really grown in a way that you can see here. You know, I think you can watch him when there's nothing else going on in this movie.
So are you thumbs up?
Roger, this is my first ever use of a thumb for this purpose. I think in this case, kind of, yes, because it's better than I would have thought.
Okay.
Okay, on to our next movie. When the kids in Snow Day find out that they have a day off from school, one of their mothers is seen weeping. That's a sign that this flimsy idea for a movie does have funny potential. Its main focus is a wacky family whose mother is played by Jean Smart, and she works too hard.
Look out, Asian carbonated beverage market. Here comes trouble.
And the father, Chevy Chase, is a local weatherman who has to dress up in silly costumes to boost ratings.
So Jack Frost here, taking you on a tour of this year's Winter Jamboree. Hey, that's some car, I gotta tell you. I'd love to have that thing in my garage, wouldn't you? Oh, isn't it amazing what some kids will do just to earn a merit badge?
Give this movie credit for at least having a Jack Frost who isn't a reincarnated dead parent like the one Michael Keaton played. Snow Day has some nice moments, but it winds up skittering off in too many different directions. Pretty soon it forgets about the snowed-in working mother, it lets everybody out of doors, and it loads up on subplots, like a mean-spirited one about Chris Elliott as a sadistic snowplow driver. There's nothing like Chris Elliott in a movie to make other actors look good. Here is a rare case where it seems that Chevy Chase isn't on screen nearly enough.
You know, I felt the same way. I'm looking at the movie at the beginning, and I'm thinking, boy, I forgot that Chevy Chase really can be good and has been good, although he's been in a lot of bad movies, too. And then he kind of disappeared, and there's another boring teenage plot about whether or not the guy can get the popular girl to go out with him. And I'm thinking we have seen this movie
Everybody has a boring subplot. I kept waiting for the Griswolds from the National Lampoon movies to, for Chevy Chase to be in charge of that family instead of this one.
Yeah, and then there's a rivalry between the two local weathermen that could have developed into something. I think, in a way, they put all of their cards with the teenage romance story and lost a lot of comic opportunities.
Yeah, and also, by the time the snow day is over, it's lost all credibility, too. They're all out of the house, they're all running around, and nobody is inconvenienced by the snow.
Yeah, they could easily have gotten to school.
Uh-huh.
Later in the show, Janet and I talk about some of the films we like the most at this year's Sundance Film Festival.
Are you scared of me?
No.
That's funny, you look scared.
And coming up next, Kate Winslet in Holy Smoke.
You're never going to break me. There's no way I can even listen to someone like you who dyes their hair.
How dare you! Let me think you were dying, you liar!
Kate Winslet stars in Holy Smoke, the new film by Jane Campion, who also made Sweetie and The Piano. And in this one, Winslet goes to India, joins a cult group, and then is lured back to Australia by her parents. They hire a cult deprogrammer, played by Harvey Keitel, who arrives in Sydney looking like he's all business, but things start going wrong from the moment he meets his new client.
This is a complete waste of time. You're never going to break me. There's no way I can even listen to someone like you who dyes their hair.
At first, Keitel's deprogrammer projects total self-confidence as he takes her into the desert for a 3-day battle of the wills.
If you want this empowerment, you go right back to Mother India. See how they treat women there.
They're more honest.
Excuse me?
They're more honest in their hatred of women.
I don't hate women.
But then the psychological tables are turned, and Winslet gets the upper hand, using sex as a weapon to reduce Keitel to helplessness.
So, what are you?
A dirty old man.
Oh, this is so much fun. I wish my friends were here. They can really laugh.
Holy Smoke is not a successful film, but neither is it a boring one. Unlike so many Australian films, it projects the notion that everyone in that country is seriously eccentric in one way or another. One problem is that it's not much of a battle between Keitel and Winslet because he never seems in charge in the first place. The other problem is that she never really seems like a cult member, more like a hobbyist looking for her next challenge. Holy Smoke looks pale beside a truly knowledgeable cult deprogramming movie like, for example, Ticket to Heaven. Remember that? But Winslet shows range and power, and Keitel is by now an expert at anguished sexual confusion.
Well, he may be an expert at that, but it's cruel to put him in a red dress in the middle of the desert and have him try to hold his own in a movie like this. I think he's got a terrible part. I think this is kind of it starts out looking like an exotic movie, and then it turns out to be a feminist screed in which he is just the punching bag, pretty much. And wonderful as Kate Winslet is in this movie, and as good as it looks, the dynamics between the two of them get to be so predictable, I think, and so embarrassing to him that it's hard to watch.
You know, one thing that struck me seeing Holy Smoke and Snow Day back to back, both of them have supporting roles.
I can't believe you're going to make a connection between those two.
Yeah, those two movies both have supporting roles for Pam Grier. Now, here is an actress who has undeniable screen power. And she got a great role in Jackie Brown, the Tarantino picture. What is her agent doing? She ought to be working in better pictures, or at least in better roles.
Harvey Keitel, Pam Grier, talk to your agents about this. Coming up next, our special report on this year's Sundance Film Festival.
I hope I'm not being cross-examined here.
You feel like that?
No, not really.
This special Festival Spotlight is brought to you by Nestle Raisinets. At the movies or at home, Raisinets.
I mean, no one's dealing with a homicide squad yet or anything, right?
No, not yet. As I said, we're not sure. Basically, no one's seen or heard anything.
So typical, isn't it?
It's just strange. One day someone's walking around, going to work, alive, and then
nothing.
That's Christian Bale in American Psycho, which was the most controversial, if not, however, the most popular entry at this year's Sundance Film Festival. And Sundance, again, in the year 2000, proved that it's the most important festival in the United States. It fills up Park City, Utah to overflowing with films and filmmakers, distributors, and critics. And even this year, a bidding war among websites looking for short films. Janet Maslin was a member of the Sundance jury this year, and here we see her handing out awards to the films that tied as winners in the feature film competition. Girlfight was about a tough teenage boxer, and You Can Count on Me was about orphans who grow up and try to get to know one another. So, Janet, from inside the jury, how did Sundance look to you this year?
You know, I'm very happy with the films we chose. I think sometimes the Sundance winners go on right to oblivion. They pick dull, well-meaning films that just don't really make it with audiences. I think both of these are going to be well-received and impress people with the quality of what was at the festival this year. You Can Count on Me is a wry, beautifully observed story about an adult brother and sister trying to overcome their differences. Mark Ruffalo and Laura Linney are wonderful as the two leads, and there's even a new talented young Culkin, Rory, to play Ms. Linney's wisecracking little son.
Who are you talking about?
Some wild kids we used to know.
Were you a wild kid?
Not as wild as your mom.
Yeah, right.
The Tao of Steve, which won an acting prize for Donald Logue, is the kind of rueful relationship comedy that's usually about female characters. What's nice about this one is it's about a slobby, overweight guy whose name is not Steve, but who aspires to the cool karma of a Steve McQueen. This guy's rules to live by, or at least his rules to land women with, are ones you're sure to remember.
I'm serious. If you're hanging out with women as friends, then you're doing your research in the wrong library.
What's wrong with being friends with women?
Nothing, but getting out of that category of friend is harder than, like, getting out of Alcatraz.
Songcatcher won an ensemble prize for its remarkable cast, and it's ably directed by Maggie Greenwald. She also made The Ballad of Little Joe. In terms of subject matter, it's a real rarity, because it's about a musicologist, played splendidly by Janet McTeer, who goes to Appalachia to collect folk songs. This film is full of rustic charm and beautiful music. The Sundance documentaries were, as usual, a great highlight of the festival, and as usual, they covered an amazing range of subject matter. Three that were outstanding: Dark Days, which was filmed underground in New York train tunnels by a filmmaker who lived among the homeless there and didn't know how to use a movie camera before he shot this prize-winning film.
I mean, anybody can walk by you while you're sleeping on the bench and bust you in the head. At least down in the tunnel, you ain't got to worry about that. Because ain't nobody in their right mind going to come down there. So you ain't got to worry about nobody coming down there messing with you. Because they're not.
Also, the top prize winner, Long Night's Journey into Day, a wrenching look at the reconciliation process in South Africa after apartheid.
We want them to remember that we paid a price in order for us to be free today.
And you couldn't get further away from that than the film that had the best title at Sundance this year, The Filth and the Fury. It's a trenchant documentary about the Sex Pistols and their heyday.
All our first rehearsals were a nightmare. I couldn't hold a damn note.
Paul couldn't really keep time. I couldn't play guitar. Hated it.
Speaking of the Sex Pistols, Roger, apparently you knew them when?
In my checkered past, I wrote a screenplay for the Sex Pistols. Russ Meyer was going to direct. I went to London. I worked with Johnny Rotten and Sid Vicious on the screenplay, along with Malcolm McLaren, their producer. And at the Sundance premiere of their documentary, I ran into Julian Temple, who directed The Filth and the Fury, and he said something very funny. He said that if you look at the old newsreel footage of the Sex Pistols appearing on the BBC news programs in 1977, they look kind of contemporary, and now it's the anchors who look like freaks with their polyester lapels and their strange hair and so forth.
Although seeing Johnny Rotten there, John Lydon with his orange mohawk now made me realize it really is the year 2000.
You know, there is a point in life, I think, when the orange mohawk has to go.
Maybe so.
When we come back, I'll talk about some of my own Sundance favorites.
I am thy father's spirit, doomed for a certain term to walk the night.
Another hit, what say you? Touch. Touch, I do confess it.
Continuing our Sundance coverage, films based on Shakespeare are suddenly hot in Hollywood, and Ethan Hawke starred in Michael Almereyda's modern dress version of Hamlet. This is one of my favorite films at Sundance. The language is pure Shakespeare, but the settings are all modern. Denmark is a powerful corporation, and Hamlet's father is murdered in a hostile takeover.
Revenge is foul and most unnatural murder. Murder most foul is in the best it is, but this most foul, strange, and unnatural.
For several years, William H. Macy has been a supporting actor looking for the right leading role, and he finds it in Panic, playing a professional hitman who seeks the help of a psychiatrist and then falls in love with a much younger woman he meets in the shrink's waiting room. Nev Campbell is very good as the object of his obsession.
Are you one of these middle-aged guys who's tired of his marriage and thinks maybe a beautiful young thing could help him out?
Excuse me?
The Cup is the first feature film from Bhutan and a real charmer about a Tibetan monastery in exile. One of the young monks, played by a 14-year-old named Orgyen Tabgyal, tries to convince the abbot to let them rent a TV set so they can watch the World Cup finals. After all, France is playing, and France is a friend of Tibet. The winner of the Audience Award for Most Popular Dramatic Film this year was Two Family House, directed by Raymond DeFelita and starring Michael Rispoli as an unhappily married Staten Island man in the 1950s who defies his friends and neighbors by befriending the young white mother of an out-of-wedlock black baby. She's played by Kelly MacDonald.
No, I wasn't making a pass at you. If I was making a pass at you, you'd know I was making a pass at you. Don't flatter yourself, huh? I think you like your meat a little darker anyway.
I think you should probably leave.
And, of course, we already saw Janet giving the shared grand jury prize to Karin Kasama's Girlfight, starring rising star Michelle Rodriguez as a tough Brooklyn girl who wants to be a prize fighter.
Ah, see? Someone gets you where you don't want to be, you get out the way. Keep your footwork smaller. That way you can punch from different angles, okay?
They called this the Year of the Woman at Sundance because a fourth of the feature entries were directed by women this year. So many, it's symbolic that the festival's co-winner was about a woman who ends up slugging it out with a man.
You know, usually they ask actors at Sundance, how did you win this role, or what was your state of mind? What she was asked was, how did you train for this role? Because she really is such a strong, dynamic, physical presence. At the same time, the movie isn't overbearing that way. So they really found the right actress to play this part and to make it interesting.
And also, I was looking at it and trying to think, well, how do you know, since this is a boxing movie, how do you know it was directed by a woman? And I think the clue is that she's more interested in the relationships than in the big fight. They don't beat each other bloody. She winds up in the ring with a guy she's kind of beginning to date. And that development could have turned into just a cliche, but it becomes very touching, the way it's handled and the way it pays off at the end. And
there's a wonderful moment when she tells him she loves him when they're both in their boxing gloves and you know, stuck in the middle of this bout. I've never seen that before.
I think Girlfight could be another Sundance picture.
It's a very entertaining picture. It really is, and really well directed. That's why it won 2 prizes.
So, American independent films this year, good, bad?
Pretty good, but, you know, there are more American independent films coming out of Hollywood than there were out of Sundance this year.
Maybe that's the Sundance influence
I
now
think so.
Percolating into the system at large. We'll be right back. Now let's take another look at the movies we reviewed on this week's show. A Split Decision on the Beach. We agreed it'd have problems, but Janet thought it offset them with technical finesse and Leonardo DiCaprio's charisma. 2 thumbs down for The Meandering Snow Day, where the best element was actually Chevy Chase. And finally, 2 thumbs down for Holy Smoke, an ambitious but ultimately preachy battle of the sexes.
I think we've demonstrated that this is not the time of year when they release the very best films.
Except if you happen to be in Park City, Utah.
Except.
Okay, thanks a lot for being here, Janet.
Thank you.
It was lots of fun. Remember, you can hear our reviews on the web, Janet and myself, at ebert-movies.com, part of Go Network. And you can read my print reviews at suntimes.com/Ebert. Next week, reviews of more new movies, including The Whole 9